For Stormers, last stop before the Stormers return to Newlands. Rob,
Yeah.
you've done quite a bit of writing on the Western Cape side. How do you see that going?
Yeah, I think it's a must-win. I think for the Stormers. It's considering the momentum that they've suddenly got going from the Waratahs, they mustn't spoil it now by botching it against the Force. The Force are on a 7-game losing streak. They've also lost at home most recently to the Cheetahs, which tells you about their limitations. It tells you that if the Stormers fancy themselves as genuine title material, they need to win this game. I would go as far as saying that for this particular match, if they lose to the Force, you might find the Stormers are simply playing for a playoffs place. If they win the match, I would think they're in the running still for a potential home semi-final, and of course by extension maybe even a home final if a few other things were to go their way. So that's how important this game may well be. They've got Skalkberger, of course, filtering back from his very deserved Laureus achievements. He'll be back in the mix by all accounts for them, and he's been playing so well that it'd be silly not to sort of put him straight back into the team, even if he's missed a training session or two. He's a sort of player with his experience. He knows what he's got to do to get himself ready for a match. So I expect him to be sort of fit and firing and throwing the old, the usual Skalkberger kitchen sink at the opposition. I've got to say, I think that the Stormers should eke out this one, maybe even with a little bit of comfort.
Yeah, bonus point win for the Stormers, Gary?
I think so. I agree 100% again with Rob. After last week scoring 4 tries, the defence really stepping up. I don't think they have any trouble beating a Force team that went down to the Cheetahs last week, and the Cheetahs are by some distance the worst South African team. So you would think, doing the math, that the Stormers won't have any problem winning. That will mean 2 wins from 4 on their tour, which is certainly not the worst tour they've ever been on. Gives them momentum as they head back to South Africa with a tour done and dusted, a lot of games at Newlands, which puts them in the pound seats in the South African Conference when you consider that the Sharks and the Bulls still have to travel and will certainly lose matches on their tour. So it could even come down to sort of the Stormers and the Lions, who's going to top the conference. That obviously remains to be seen, but as Rob said, if the Stormers do win, and I expect them to pick up the 5 points, that'll put them in the pound seats in the South African Conference, and they can hopefully kick on from there to secure one of those all-important buys into the playoffs, which is so important, and obviously then host hopefully a semi-final. So it's a lot depends on this game. Hopefully they don't sort of see it as or underestimate the Force team. And like I said, Rob said, the Force team haven't won in 7 games. They haven't looked that good. CS Everson, I'm not sure if he's actually playing this weekend, but he's sort of been very limited at fly-off, and he's sort of been the reason, I think, behind a couple of the Force's defeats this season. So it remains to be seen who's actually selected for the Force, but I don't have any doubt that the Stormers won't win this match.
Okay. Big one at 5, Rob. Sharks Bulls. Obviously, with the Lions playing so well, they have a bye this weekend, so it does give the other teams in the South African Conference to sort of move up a bit. I see the Bokja of Yanni and Beast back for the Sharks. That should be an almighty forward contest.
Yeah, it will be. It's do or die for the Sharks. I think if they lose this one, that puts them on 6 defeats from 10 games. I don't think there'll be any way back for them. They might be in a situation there where thereafter where they might be looking to have to win every game from there on in. And the Sharks have been so inconsistent at best that it's, especially with the tour, as Garen mentioned, still ahead of them with some really tough games overseas. There's just no way they're going to win every game, especially as they're still so down on resources. In fairness, it is crisis time there, but let's not forget that they are missing a lot of players, some of them through their own fault, obviously through suspension, but there's also a terrible injury list at Kings Park, which means they are scraping the barrel a bit. This game they're really going to have to hang tough if they're going to beat the Bulls. I've got the Bulls as pretty firm favourites, even given that it's a Durban match. I think the Bulls will be comfortable enough going to Durban. They'll have, I think, a very much closer to a sort of a first team looking side. They're obviously missing Victor Matfield still, but other than that, the Bulls team is going to be pretty much at optimal strength, whereas the Sharks are still missing several key personnel. I think the Sharks can win, but I reckon the smart money is pretty much on the Bulls for this one.
And Rob, sorry, just on the Sharks, they have some serious rugby brains in the administration there, likes of Gary Gold, John Smith, Brendan Fenter, etc. Surely with that sort of nucleus of rugby experience, it's strange that it's not transferring onto the field.
Yeah, it should be. I mean, I wrote this week something about their structures perhaps being a little bit dodgy. You know, they don't seem to back their Vodacom Cup side very much. The Sharks 15, as it's called, that plays in the Vodacom Cup, has got off to a bit of a rocky start. It tells you that beneath some of their senior level players, maybe the management you've spoken of, I mean, there are some massive names among them, but perhaps they made the mistake of recruiting a few players who are a little bit long in the tooth. When you think especially of that second row, you know, Moritz Botha and Marco Wenzel, sort of, you know, guys in their mid-30s. I think their combined age is 68. You're looking at
rugby standards, that's ancient.
Yeah, you can't blame them because, again, they're missing Stefan Levies and Peter Steph du Toit. You might well be their first choice locks, you know, out to sort of varying sort of long-term injury problems. So you can't blame them wholly, but you've also got to say that there's something wrong there, that their structures beneath Super Rugby level, which obviously can provide a feeder in times of crisis, is not really working for them, because they don't seem to be putting that much trust in players from the sort of under 21 ranks, for instance, or from Vodacom Cup ranks, like the Stormers do quite effectively at times when they have injuries. They bring in guys confidently from their under 21s or their Vodacom side. You know, you can have all the experience in the world among your top management, which they do have, you know, guys with good CVs, as you say, but maybe they're just not quite structurally doing the right things in Durban.
Right, Garen, last one, Cheetahs versus the Reds. Cheetahs have got the tails up.
Yeah.
Another easy 5-pointer there.
I don't know about how easy it's going to be. The Cheetahs team is difficult to read. You know, obviously they had a pretty disastrous tour until their final match when they looked pretty impressive against the Force. But I think the Force are actually pretty woeful. So, you know, maybe we just have to remember that. And then again, a Reds team that went down, were competitive in the first in stages against the Bulls, but then went down fairly heavily in the end. I see they've called James Hall back after his suspension. So, you know, again, the Reds languishing down 14th, 15th spot in the log, don't really look like they're going to rise much higher than that. The Cheetahs, definitely the weakest South African team. It's a bit of a basement battle already, even though it's the halfway stage of the season. You know, you'd think at home the Cheetahs will have the advantage. But, you know, difficult to say. You know, they've actually flown back, whereas the Reds have already been in South Africa for a week. So hopefully the jet lag, you know, isn't an issue. Heinrich Brousseau playing amazing rugby for the Cheetahs. I think he could well be the difference between the two teams. So I'm going to go with the home side in this game by 6 or 7 points. But it should be a good way to end the weekend, I think.